Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at a totally new way to think about cybersecurity, one that actually borrows its logic straight from the factory floor, from the world of supply chain management. And let me tell you, it's a perspective that might just change how you look at digital risk forever.
And it all kicked off in the most ordinary way imaginable. A chance encounter in an elevator between a cybersecurity expert and a supply chain pro. Just a short chat that, well, it stuck with them long after those doors slid open. And that quick conversation sparked this really powerful question. What if we stopped treating cybersecurity like a constant, chaotic firefight and started managing it with the exact same discipline and planning we used to run a production line?
All right, let's dive into that. How did this one simple chat manage to reveal such a deep, surprising connection between two worlds that seem so far apart? Think about it. We are absolute masters at managing our physical supply chains. We track container ships across oceans. We plan for port delays. We've got it down to a science. But when it comes to our digital supply chains, the code, the data, all the software we rely on, that same level of discipline, it's often just not there. And a failure in the digital world can be every bit as catastrophic. So let's really build on that idea. The core concept here is to start seeing our entire digital ecosystem as one big, complex, interconnected production line. It's the factory floor of the 21st century. And when you look at it this way, the parallels are they're striking. In a factory, we use validated parts from qualified suppliers and we run them on controlled schedules. Well, the digital world is exactly the same. It needs validated software from trusted partners released through structured, planned update processes. The components are different, sure, but the fundamental logic, it's identical.
And this is the absolute key takeaway. In today's business world, a failure in your code is a failure in your production. Full stop. The integrity of your software is just as critical as the flow of physical materials coming into your factory. So, if our digital world is a factory, how on earth do we manage it? Well, it turns out the answer is hiding in a classic supply chain tool, master production scheduling, or what folks in the industry call MPS. For decades, MPS has been the absolute backbone of manufacturing. It's the master plan, the thing that brings order to all the chaos, making sure everything happens at the right time, in the right place, in the right sequence. And that logic, it can be lifted directly over to manage the flow of code and data. And this is where it gets really cool. The mapping is practically one-to-one. A bill of materials for parts, that's just a software bill of materials or an SBOM for code. Production scheduling, that looks a whole lot like a time-phased software rollout. And sales and operations planning, the thing that aligns the whole business, that becomes a cyber S&OP, a way to make sure your security efforts are perfectly in sync with your business goals. So this all comes together in a really clear 4-step process. When you follow these steps, you completely change the game. You move cybersecurity away from being a reactive fire drill and turn it into a proactive, planned, and orchestrated operation, just like a really well-run factory. Now, I know this might sound like just a clever analogy, but believe me, it's not. The consequences of failing to manage this digital supply chain are very, very real, and they can be incredibly severe. Just take the Move It incident. It's a perfect and unfortunately very recent example of what happens when one single digital component fails and sends a catastrophic ripple effect across the entire globe. So you had a single vulnerability in just one piece of software, and ransomware groups jumped all over it. The impact wasn't contained at all. It created this massive digital bottleneck. It rippled through tons of organizations that depended on that software, and it proved, without a doubt, that one weak digital link can be just as damaging as a fully blocked shipping lane. But the threat isn't always some brand new sophisticated attack. Sometimes, the real danger has been hiding in plain sight for decades, buried deep inside millions of devices. And that was exactly the case with an incident we now know as Ripple 20. What's just incredible about Ripple 20 is that the flawed code was literally decades old. It was just sitting there, dormant, embedded in millions of connected devices all over the world. It's a stark reminder of why we desperately need deep visibility into every single component we use, no matter how old or insignificant it seems. And this brings us to a really crucial realization, the main point of all this. We have to start treating digital vulnerabilities with the same seriousness and strategic planning that we apply to any physical bottleneck in our supply chain,
Period.
So, okay, what does this new mindset actually look like in practice? Well, it really just boils down to three core principles borrowed straight from the factory floor.
First up, visibility. It's simple, right? You absolutely cannot protect what you cannot see. This means you need to track every single component in your digital ecosystem with the same precision you'd use to track nuts and bolts in a warehouse. Second, accountability. There has to be clear ownership. For every piece of software you use, whether you built it yourself or got it from a vendor, someone has to be responsible for its security and integrity. No more pointing fingers. And finally, flow control. You have to manage the deployment of software and updates with discipline and structure. You can't just push things out and hope for the best anymore. This is the fundamental truth we all need to embrace. These are not separate disciplines any longer. They are two sides of the very same coin, and you can't truly secure one without securing the other. You know, building real digital resilience isn't about finding some magical silver bullet. It's about the process. It's about applying that mindset of continuous daily improvement from the production line to the code that now powers literally every part of our businesses. And that leaves us with one final crucial question I want you to think about. Take a hard look at your own organization. Are you truly managing your digital supply chain with the same rigor, the same planning, and the same visibility that you apply to your physical one? Because the answer to that question could determine everything when the next inevitable disruption hits.